Hello everybody, Nathan here from Modern Deployment IT blog. I'm here live at Ignite in Orlando, Florida, Ignite 2019. This video is a quick recap and the key takeaways that I have observed and some feedback and some of the great announcements that we saw here at Ignite this year. So let's get started. First, I'd like to say you can find me, you can follow me on my blog on moderndeployment.com. Subscribe to the channel on my YouTube channel and click on the bell notification icon to get notified for new videos. Also, you can find me on Twitter. If you use Twitter you can find me at Nathan J Bridges on Twitter. So some of the venue tips, they were good. There were hot meals here. They also had snack box and vendor food as well. One thing I would suggest, which I had planned for myself, is to wear some comfortable shoes. I purposely went out and bought some new Rockport shoes personally. So, casual dress shoes, or if you prefer tennis shoes, that's a lot of people were wearing tennis shoes and whatnot. So, be prepared to walk a lot. A lot of the venues, you're going to put in a lot of mileage on walking around to the different sessions and whatnot. For me, I did an actual walkthrough the day before when I arrived here on Sunday, just to kind of get an idea of where the particular sessions that I was going to start the next coming days, where they were going to be located. They had a lot of Microsoft people here that would basically guide you as you walk through the halls. So they had a mobile app as well. Once you use the mobile app, you can find what ballroom things are in, what floors, but they had physical people along the way who you could ask questions to about. The main area was referred to as the hub. This is where the vendors basically camped out and pitched their tent, and a lot of them. So one side was all Microsoft, so like Microsoft Sentinel, Microsoft Azure, Office, and they actually basically were able to demo the different products, a lot of different products. It's overwhelming the amount of Microsoft products that were here with all the vendors. A lot of vendors that I've never heard of too before that were here. So it's good to see a mix, Carbonite, Lenovo, HP, various different vendors. Dell had a really good booth, so it was good. So some of the key takeaways. This is my first time here at Ignite 2019. This is my first time at Ignite, so I had the privilege of making it this time. I would not assume moving forward that every Ignite is going to be the same. Don't walk in with that assumption. I made that mistake. There were things that Microsoft announced and demonstrated that I had not anticipated or heard any rumors about. For example, they talked about some of the new actually rebranding of SCCM. So no longer will it be called SCCM. It's basically being referred to as Microsoft Endpoint Manager, and it's not just SCCM. Basically, Intune, Desktop Analytics, SCCM are all being rolled up into Microsoft Endpoint Manager, which is basically a conglomerate of all these tools rolled up to a web version of the product. So for years, people actually have been asking for a web version of SCCM. So now it's not just SCCM web-based management. It's Intune and all those things you're familiar with in Desktop Analytics. All those signals and all those client, all that data is rolled up into this Microsoft Endpoint Manager, which is now going to be admin.microsoft.com. That's going to be the website. So that was good to see. One of the demonstrations they showed CM Pivot in the web browser, in the admin.microsoft.com web browser. And if you're familiar with CM Pivot and SCCM, you can run various commands for real-time queries. One of the use cases they demonstrated was the help desk connecting through the web browser down to a client that was internet connected, a cloud management gateway client, and he literally ran the IP config command from CM Pivot and actually got return values on what that is. So imagine you're on a call with the user, and instead of you trying to walk them through, type start, run, CMD, IP config, instead of you having a remote into your desktop, you can remotely run CM Pivot, IP config commands, and any other command line commands, and get that result returned to you as a help desk operator in the browser. So these are cool features that I was really impressed by, that I totally didn't expect here at Ignite. So one of the key takeaways too from the keynote, let me jump into that real quick. So one of the key takeaways from the keynote, the Microsoft CEO mentioned, 75% of the breaches are password attack based, right? So the point is, you as a customer or you as a technical lead, you should be pushing the upper management to enable multi-factor, period, regardless of the product, whether it's Microsoft multi-factor or Okta or Duo, whatever it is. Enable multi-factor for 100% of the employees 100% of the time. So the way to improve security is turn on multi-factor 100% for 100% of employees 100% of the time. Staying current, number 2, on the OS, and that means Windows 10, of course. And then number 3, using the secure scorecards within the Microsoft. There's actually this ability built into some of the cloud services where you can basically get suggestions from Microsoft unique to your environment. So your tenant, your environment is not going to be the same as another customer, another environment. So being able to use some of these security tools to improve your security posture, using the secure score to walk through what specific things you need to do and you need to enable in your tenant to improve your security. So I know a lot of customers, I go to a lot of customers and they don't have multi-factor enabled. They're going through a lot of change management and just back and forth. It's something that you can enable really quick and easy. And from a Microsoft, you can just use the Microsoft default multi-factor authentication, whether you have Office 365 or just Azure. You can enable multi-factor and be done. There's a new option actually, which allows you to enable it for admins and for standard user, and there's some other preview options that makes it very simple to enable multi-factor in tenant. So they announced another product called Azure Sentinel, which is basically allowing the third-party connectors. So Amazon Web Services, F5 appliances, all kind of connectors that you can use this web portal in Azure to aggregate all the different threats in your environment. So I know you may be familiar with Windows Defender, Advanced Threat Protection and whatnot. This is not that. This is taking all these different data connectors from Trend Micro, from all your third-party security tools, and integrating that into one view, web view, so you can have all this threat information and take action on it, right? So that's the point of that. And it has intelligence and AI and machine learning that a lot of these third-party applications by themselves wouldn't have this intelligence, whereas Azure Sentinel is going to have this machine learning ability to understand that weird patterns and whatnot of from a security perspective. So those are some of the highlights from a security perspective. I want to jump back to the SCCM highlights. So what's new with Microsoft Endpoint Manager? So one of the things they talked about is this web portal, get back to the web portal that I was talking about earlier. You're going to be able to attach your tenant via co-management. So when coming in SCCM 1910, there'll be an option in the co-management wizard, right, where you'll be able to connect part of that wizard. There'll be a screen, there'll be a tab that they're calling enabling cloud console. So you'll go through the wizard just like you do now with co-management, but there's going to be a tenant onboarding option tab, and there'll be a checkbox that says import data to Intune for cloud console, and that's how you're going to connect your on-premise SCCM clients back into the cloud, into the Microsoft Endpoint Manager, or now they're referring to it as MemeCM. So no more hashtags with SCCM or Config Manager. Now let's start using the hashtag MemeCM moving forward. So via cloud attach through the co-management wizard within the SCCM console. When you're already licensed for co-management, you'll be able to basically have the web management of your SCCM clients. And then, so what they did mention too was it's not going to be immediately like SCCM where you can install apps and whatnot. They're going to gradually enable features over the years. So instead of them, and they made the point too, that instead of them waiting 5 years to get everything, they're going to slowly release different features, listening to your feedback, and then improving on that product basically over the years, and do it that way, and with that approach. One of the things they talked about with this tenant attach, so imagine being, like I mentioned earlier, being able to run CM Pivot in the web console, so the help desk can basically perform troubleshooting to get, what management point are you connected to, what's the inventory data. There's something called Device Explorer that I saw that is basically let you drill down to get more information about the client. So not even having to launch the SCCM console, help desk technicians will be able to basically see all these metrics, this metadata, and be able to either run SimPivot or inventory or client apps. The client apps tab that they showed, it sounded like what he said was you can't install applications just yet, but that's their plan, to be able to install applications and basically the similar functionality of what you can do in SCCM, but it's limited initially. Of course, right now it's going to be improved over time. ATP integration, so basically that means the ATP, if you have ATP, Windows Defender ATP enabled in your Azure tenant, that information, and you have that, deployed to your clients, all those client events will be triggered and uploaded into this view. Another thing too they mentioned too is all the event viewer statuses from local client machines will also be published in this view. You'll have this web, endpoint manager view you'll have, in the web browser, to be able to see a lot more information in one view. So this is going to be pretty cool. So being able to see SCCM client information, and if you have Intune clients that are cloud only, right? Or if you have desktop, and another part of that was desktop analytics is also going to be part of this too. So again, one view to be able to see all these different, there'll be just different nodes on the left, just like you're familiar with the different nodes, right? In the Intune console, in the web console, they're going to basically roll this up into a parent console where you'll be able to drill down to different components of your environment. User experience analytics, that's a new one. That's basically going to be the ability to see the boot time for particular devices. So not just, let's see here if I've got some screenshots on that. Okay, user experience analytics is going to let you see the login time, the startup time, the group policy processing time, and then you'll be able to literally compare third-party plugins, all sort of agents that are running, and the actual time that it's taking to boot them. So, and one cool thing that I saw in one of the slides was the web portal will be able to show you. They had an example on the screen. It was like you have 11,000 HDD drives, which means non-SSD drives. If you change them to SSD drives, you can improve your boot time by 30 seconds. It was something like that. So the point is, this information that's being aggregated to the web client is relevant information. That means it's reading the SCCM database information for all your clients. So the hard drive types, hardware inventory, is reading all this information and being able to help you make intelligent decisions, based on your unique environment. Okay, what else? Of course, you may or may not know about cloud hosted. So you could technically host your SCCM environment. If you're a customer that doesn't have SCCM, on your on-premise environment, you could technically host SCCM in the cloud. So they mentioned that too, as part of this. Okay, so that's that. They also talked about Microsoft Virtual Desktop. Microsoft Virtual Desktop is not just hosting a VM, it's a completely new virtualized environment hosted by Microsoft. So there's a lot more details around this. So you need to look up Microsoft Virtual Desktop and understand, this components around this. So this is not just remote desktop, like standard Windows remote desktop. This is more broader than that. One of the things that's tied into the support of this, so with Windows 7, so let's switch topics here. So end of Windows 7 support, they showed a slide where, if you're familiar with extended security updates, so we all know the January date on when January 2020, when Windows 7 support is going to be end of life. And that means Windows 7 and Windows, so in other words, if you have Windows 7 clients obviously that January date is going to be coming up soon. So they give you three options for this extended security update support, additional 3 years. However, here it is. So what they show on this slide, it says you can leverage Windows Virtual Desktop, which is the new virtual option. So basically, you take your Windows 7 VM and put it in the cloud, host it in the cloud. So you'll create a Windows 7 virtual environment in the cloud for, say you have 500 clients. You'll have multiple VMs, of course, to connect, all those users. But you'll receive free Windows 7 extended security updates for 3 years as a benefit if you host your Windows 7 clients in Windows Virtual Desktop, which is the new virtual system. The second option is taking advantage of an E5 promotion that they're offering. And by the way, they didn't say this in the slide. I talked to one of my colleagues, Adele. He had more details. He said that this second option, where you receive a first year of extended security, you have to opt into that promo by the end of this year. So you can't wait to January to opt into this promo for the second option, which is receiving the first year free for extended security updates. You need to opt into that now. So if you already know you're going to need more time for Windows 7, and some customers haven't even started their Windows 7 deployment late, and we're already in November. So they have to the end of this year to opt into that free 1 year, but that's just for the 1 year. So that means the other 2 years you still have to pay for. Now, if you forget, and in January, it's the executive finally makes a decision, whoever that governance board is, they have to pay for all 3 years each year. There's no prorated or, I'm going to wait to the end of December 2020 and then I'll opt in. I'll save that way. No, there's no prorating. You have to pay for the 3 years. That's the second option, taking advantage. So you have to have an E5 license. This does not apply to E3. So if you have an E3 license only, you have to pay for this extension. And then the third option is just to purchase outright the extended security updates for the 3 years. Protect your Windows 7 devices for up to 3 years through January 2023. Right? So in order to do that, you can reach out to your account executive or CSP partner. So reach out to one of your Dell's, as an example, your Dell sales rep, and they can, who we are a CSP partner, to get information around that licensing. Now I take that back. I have a note here. The E3 license is a 50% discount. So if you have an E3 license for that second option, you get a 50% discount. Okay? Not a full discount. So if you had E5, and you opt in, before December of this year, then you get a first year free, but the other 2 years you have to pay. So the point is, a lot of customers have E5 licenses. Majority of the large customers have it. You might be a smaller organization and you don't have the, maybe you're at an E3 level. So just understand there's going to be differences. So what I would suggest is do a Google search for extended security updates or reach out to your Dell sales exec to get more details around what this means. But the point is, you need to make a decision to get some of the benefits if you're at an E5 level, or to get that 50% if you're already E3, to get that 50% discount. You need to make that decision by the end of this year, December. You can't wait right to January to get that discount. Okay. One thing I wanted to mention, switching gears. So the desktop analytics, unlike upgrade readiness, there's not an option. In upgrade readiness, you were able to, and a lot of times we did this at Dell when we were testing, desktop or testing upgrade readiness. We would turn on, there was an option in upgrade readiness where you could turn on demo data. That option, meaning you could, simulate, I've got 5,000 clients without pushing out the scripts to aggregate the data just as a test if you wanted to test upgrade readiness. Well, now with desktop analytics, I talked to the actual desktop analytics, one of the SMEs at Microsoft, and he said there's currently not a demo option, unlike upgrade readiness, where you can turn on dummy data to test desktop analytics. So when you opt, and so January 15th, there's not going to be an ability, I'll take that back. Currently, there's not the ability, if you have not already added an upgrade readiness solution to your tenant, If you haven't enabled upgrade readiness in your tenant yet, you cannot create one at this point. You have to go right to desktop analytics. So just understand that. So, but if you already have, and this was, I think this was October 16th that change happened where you can't create a net new upgrade readiness solution. You have to go right to desktop analytics. So if you're a customer and you already had upgrade readiness, there's an option in there where it will let you migrate to desktop analytics. So really the point is you want to migrate to desktop analytics. If you already have an existing upgrade readiness solution, migrate to desktop analytics and start using that. You can't have both. You can't have your clients pointing to upgrade readiness and desktop analytics, right? So just go ahead and move over to desktop analytics at this point, because that's the future anyway, and you can't create an upgrade readiness portal anyway, or solution. So it's best to just jump right into that. Okay, so we talked about the attachment. So again, co-management will enable, there's going to be a new feature of co-management that will let you cloud attach to get that SCCM or that endpoint manager, as we're referring to it now, to have your devices in a co-managed state and aggregate that data up to the web portal. So the action to take now is to go ahead and onboard your machines in co-management. So if you're already licensed for co-management, is the point they made too. So if you have E3, E5, you're already licensed for co-management. So just go ahead and enable co-management. Have your clients all register their information into the cloud. That doesn't mean that anybody has to log in, but just enable it so you have that option right now. What else? Enterprise application management. Okay, so another topic was enterprise app management with MSIX. If you've not used MSIX before, basically this is to allow you to convert your legacy applications, right, into a newer format so that you can then take advantage of a new installer format called MSIX. This speeds up the installation. There's no need to sideload applications into the Microsoft Store or any of that stuff you had to do before. And this is this integrates with the Microsoft Virtual Desktop that I talked about previously. So this is part of that. So get familiar with MSIX and what that gives you. Okay, so no duplicate files across apps. It's a single instance storage on the hard drive. They even showed when you integrate this with Microsoft Virtual Desktop in the cloud, you can basically attach an MSIX to a virtual environment where basically the user clicks on the app and it's literally not installed in the VM, right? It's just hosted, on the VM. And so when they run it, so let's say it's a gig. Let's say it's a gig installer. It literally does not add a gig to that VM instance. It's just basically it's detached from the virtual environment. So you can store that virtual MSIX, installer in a different storage location. So to the user, they can't tell the difference. So they demonstrated like a Power BI app. They attached it. The user clicked on it and launched it, and it didn't change the disk space on the environment in the virtual desktop environment. So there's a lot of new things with the virtual environment. Now they did show, they did a lot of there's a lot of information on this. There's like developer mode. There's a way to restrict app installers. There's a way to use Defender app control, via App Locker. They showed some of the troubleshooting things that you can do with PowerShell. There's an invoke command to package the application for MSIX. They talked about signing. So there's a way to digitally use code signing certificates. You could technically use your enterprise root certificate or third party. The recommendation, however, is to use device guard signing. So there's a command. He ran just a simple command, and it basically digitally signed it with device guard signing through the tenant actually. So there's more details about this. Just look up MSIX. Basically, all these topics that I'm talking about, go through the individual topics. Once they put out all the videos and whatnot next week and all the PowerPoints for Ignite, you'll be able to go back and watch those videos and go through those PowerPoint decks for each of the topics. So one of the topics I would go through is the MSIX. Okay, and make sure you understand it. They even demonstrated something that they're calling MSIX Core, which allows you to install MSIX applications on Windows 7 and Windows 8, as well as Windows Server 2008 support. So again, this is not MSIs, right? So this is taking an MSI or an EXE and repackaging it to a modern installer format, which you can then easily attach to, various different things. Okay, there's also training labs and videos that you can look up on MSIX. They're calling the training labs and video tutorials. You need to look for MSIX labs. MSIX labs. Okay. What about, see what else? Security. What else? Some of the web updates. So let's switch gears. Web updates. So this was around Edge and Bing. So if you're not familiar, they've got currently in developer mode. You can there's a new Edge browser that's going to be based on Chromium. So just like Chrome is open, is popular browser. Microsoft has introduced something called, using the Chromium platform. They're going to create their own browser. It's going to be the Chromium engine. You're going to be able to use it on Windows 10. I believe you can use this on Windows 7 too, iOS and Android. This is going to be also standalone from the operating system, meaning it's going to have the ability to be installed on different platforms. iOS, like we mentioned, Android, Windows 7, Windows 10. I'm not sure about Mac. It's going to have improved performance and compatibility. They showed both in, obviously they'll have group policy, but they want to move away from group policy and manage it through the cloud. They showed some of the security baselines that you can configure. So in Azure Tenant, you can configure some security baselines specifically for the Chromium browser that they're going to come out with. So homepage, there was like hundreds of settings for configuring the browser. For the Chromium browser that you're going to be able to configure. You're also going to have the ability to run legacy IE pages. So to the user, they won't be able to tell, kind of like enterprise mode, you'll be able to have an IE11 based experience, but the user won't know the difference. It'll be the Chromium browser, but say there's some like website that has to be rendered in IE11 mode, you'll be able to run that mode, but there'll be a little icon at the top of the Chromium browser, the Edge Chromium browser, that will indicate that it's running in IE11 mode, for example. One of the web updates too that they talked about with Bing was the ability to have searching based on internet. So if you're using Bing.com and you have this, and you enable in your tenant, if you enable this Bing, this new Bing search that they're going to come out with, using Bing.com, you'll be able to search the internet and the intranet. So if the user, imagine the user logs into Office 365 and they do a Bing search for Amy, whoever, let's say somebody famous, let's say any name that you can think of that's an external celebrity as an example. That's the example they gave. So, but there's an internal person, internal to your organization with the same name. So not only did it show the internet result, it showed the intranet results. So you'll be able to search internet and extranet for people, for Box and other type connectors, OneDrive, SharePoint data, and be able to see what that person's contact information on, and start a conversation with them, start a Teams meeting. These kind of integrations that are going to be native to Bing, and the Chromium browser, of course. Okay, what else? What's new? Part 2. Let's see. Oh, the final thing I wanted to go over. Well, a couple more things. So I want to go over 3 more topics. So the next topic is something that they're calling Update Staging Lab. Update Staging Lab. This is a new service for ISVs, for internet service vendors, to be able to test new Windows 10 versions, but also Windows 10 security updates. And that would, of course, mean Server 2019 updates too. So being able to basically test, and they have a statement here. So if you do a Google search for Update Staging Lab, Microsoft Update Staging Lab, they have an image and they have a statement here kind of explaining what it is. So the Update Staging Lab is an intelligent and secure Azure service that helps customers and their partners manage application validation ahead of Windows 10 update releases. This represents a tremendous opportunity to streamline your testing infrastructure and the effort required in maintaining it by connecting the Windows build pipeline to Azure Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS. It provides valuable application intelligence insights, including performance and testing characteristics. In this informative session, you'll learn, and they have a link on going through, they actually have a video. So do a Google search for Update Staging Lab, go through the video, and they basically show you essentially what it is ISVs will be able to log in to this website and register, essentially. Let's say McAfee. And then they're going to be able to, the environment will already have intelligence to test against 1903, 1803, 1909, Windows 10, 1809, for example, and they'll be able to basically test different component functionally testing. What's the CPU and memory utilization? These are the kind of metrics that they're going to be testing, and they'll be able to just run the job, and it will just happen automatically. Now, of course, they got to register. You got to I believe you would have to upload your application. So the demo they gave, they showed a screenshot of an application was updated like an EXE, and that EXE functionality had failed at a particular test that it had automated. And the point of this too, the future of this is going to be, if you have modern UI based apps, there's going to be a bot that they have to do the physically functioning testing. This might be confusing, but just pay attention to this. So this means that maybe this is probably going to take a while for a lot of vendors to modernize their app. A lot of vendors are really severely behind. I can't recall a lot of vendors, especially with security tools, that are modernizing their app. They're trying to, a lot of the security tools like McAfee and Trend and all these sort of security tools, they're directly trying to access the kernel and do all these things that are not necessarily modern. So, but the point is, this system will do functionality testing automatically for you. So if you have a modern version, it'll be, the demonstration they gave was like a newer UI based application, and it was literally clicking through different options automatically. So you just didn't have to do anything. So now, of course, not every application is in that state. So for those legacy apps and vendor apps that are kind of old, they're not modern Windows 10 apps, they'll have to go through and import them essentially, and let the system scan the executables to see if there's any, not just compatibility issues, but functional issues. Is it using high CPU? Is this particular EXE using high CPU utilization? That would be considered a fail. So, it's checking these security updates, all the security updates for every month, and going through and doing various checks, against those executables. So the vendor just uploads it, runs the reports, and it's going to make it easier. So some of the key points they have here, that ISV can validate easily with Microsoft in a joint testing environment. Tests will be triggered with pre-release Windows security updates 3 to 4 weeks prior to release. So 3 to 4 weeks prior to a security update release, like the monthly patches, there'll be triggers to test these different updates before they get publicly released. Starting with Windows security updates, will support feature updates in the future. So initially it's going to be just security updates. They're going to add Windows 10 OS updates or feature updates later. So right now it's just going to be security update based. So that's pretty cool, a pretty cool option in my opinion. It's just going to take some time, I think, for vendors to adopt this. But at least Microsoft is making efforts to make these things available. So really, technically, there's no excuse for vendors not to opt into this. Microsoft is basically saying, we're creating a lab environment for you. You can just, add your applications and have them be automatically tested or regression tested, at least scan the executables for compatibility, for memory use, for utilization, and other metrics to validate that app is good to go or it's a no-go for a particular security update. And then that's even going to be more important for Windows 10 releases that comes out for OS updates. Being able to check, is this version of this our security tools that we're developing or other line of business apps as a vendor, as an ISV, are they compatible with the next release of Windows 10? So again, no excuse. Microsoft is at least making an effort to do these things. So it's up to you and us as ISVs, as vendors, to run through this process and use the tools that Microsoft is providing. And this is a good step in the right direction. Microsoft creating an environment, a test lab, a test environment where you can, these ISVs can validate, security updates and OS updates as well. They did mention, let's see. Okay, so let's switch gears to Autopilot. So some of the new things come up. There was a lot of information, so pay attention when the slides and the videos come out. Go back and look at the videos. Go through the slides and pay attention to Michael Niehause's slides concerning Autopilot. He did a really good job, and there's some other folks that had other good information too. One of the key things that it mentioned that's going to be coming is, how when you auto-enroll a device, you have to unbox it and run a script to get the hash, and then you have to, we're talking about Intune and Autopilot. So you have to, imagine you're a vendor, you got to unbox the machine, or even if you're an IT organization, you receive the machine, you got to register it, get the hash, and then put it all back in a box. And, that's a lot of extra work. So now they're going to come out with a concept of a barcode that they're going to put, and this is going to be select devices and select vendors. So not every vendor, so you need to reach out to Dell is on that list for sure, which is going to have this ability on the outside of the box, a barcode. So the tech or someone will be able to scan the barcode, and that information can then be imported to register that device with your tenant. So part of the an easier way to register devices for customers, tenant in Intune. A huge thing that they came out with that they announced, and everybody clapped when they heard this. When you deploy hybrid AD or Azure AD, they're gonna add a VPN option. So third party, again, let me repeat that. When you run through Autopilot, right now you can't use VPN software to do that connection back to your organization, to your on-premise organization. So they're gonna add basically VPN functionality for the hybrid Azure AD scenario. So basically this is going to be Q1 of 2020, and basically what that means is customers will have to add their VPN application, Cisco, F5, whatever it is. They'll have to add that as part of the Intune app configuration, and then when the user gets to the login screen during UBI, well, it'll be after UBI, it'll be at the point where they enter their credentials, like the Windows login screen, there'll be an option for that particular VPN application that you have. Now, this assumes that the VPN application that you have for your organization is allowed to be used through the GINA, the Windows login GINA. So, for example, Global Protect, I believe Global Protect and some of the other products I've seen, Cisco, they have the ability to integrate directly into the GINA. So the bottom line is, during the hybrid join Autopilot process, the user will be able to use a VPN to finish the enrollment back to their on-premise. The second big point they made, new feature that's coming, what's coming later, and they mentioned Q4 of this year, assigning a computer name. So it's not like you might be used to. It doesn't sound like it's like a pop-up during auto enrollment where you can type a computer name. This means that the way I understood it is in Intune, you'll be able to create a computer name, and I didn't see a screenshot of this or anything, so I'm not sure on the how, but you'll be able to assign a computer name to a device, and that computer name. So just like when it goes through the UBI experiences, it talks to the local domain controller using the hybrid Azure AD connector. It's going to ultimately rename that computer based on what you created in Intune. So I'd be interested to see what that looks like. It would have been nice if it was local to the UBI experience, or right after the UBI experience, so right after the login screen or something like that, or maybe before the login screen. Maybe it's because the UBI experience, it's not that simple to create an LTI to prompt for a computer name. So this is probably why they're making it available as an option in Intune, because it's not going to be that simple to just, do that during the UBI experience. But that is a good thing, being able to assign computer names. The other part the other feature that's going to be coming is Windows Autopilot deployment reports. So at the end of this year, it's going to be Autopilot deployment reports that you can run to see what happened with the deployment and be able to troubleshoot. Some pretty cool things that they have coming, around Autopilot. Another big thing, ability to run an SCCM task sequence after the user logs in. So I have a screenshot. Let's see, where did I do that screenshot? I had I have it on my phone. But what they showed was there'll be a checkbox when you, let me look on my phone. Oh, I can't, it's on my phone here. So the basically is going to be, they showed a task sequence option. I think it was in, man, I can't remember what screen it was on. Basically, I'll get you the detail. We'll have to go over the details later about that. But just be aware that there's going to be an option to run an SCCM task sequence, after the UBI experience completes for auto enrollment. They also talked about the hybrid Azure AD join process as it relates to the VPN support. They said that they're going to remove. They showed a diagram. They're going to remove the ping DC option. So basically, during the hybrid Azure AD join for auto enrollment, it tries to ping the domain controller. They're completely removing that and replacing it with the VPN support. Right, so this is going to be Windows 10 1903 and above. So this won't support 1809. You'll have to have 1903 and above for this new functionality that's going to come in Q1 of 2020. Then of course they talked about self-deploy, and then finally they talked about, which is already a feature now, turning off the enrollment status page for Autopilot for the user enrollment status page. So, if you're familiar with the issue, sometimes, well, a lot of times that I've seen, the enrollment status page for the user will time out. And it could take up to 45 minutes or an hour for that timeout to finish timing out. And it's just unnecessarily adding to your deployment. So now they added a feature to turn off the user enrollment status page. So I would suggest doing that, testing it, see if that improves your process. But I think once they get through these bugs here and there, this is going to vastly improve the overall process of Windows Autopilot and Intune. And the biggest one is like the VPN that we talked about, being able to register a device with barcode. So these are big wins from my perspective that Microsoft is introducing. The final one I wanted to talk about was Power BI. So if you're not familiar with Power BI, there was a lot of information about Power BI. I think Power BI, there's a slight learning curve. They made it look easy in the demonstrations, but there is some things that you just need to practice this. So they do have some YouTube channels, I would suggest. So if you go to YouTube and type Microsoft Power BI, there is a YouTube channel, or MS Power BI, one word, MS Power BI. That's the Microsoft Power BI. They have on YouTube, they have some really good videos on getting started, creating different charts and pie graphs and all kind of different topics. The other YouTube channel for Power BI is Guy in a Cube, GUY in a Cube, Guy in a Cube. They also have a YouTube channel, so add them as well. They're part of the Microsoft Power BI team, and I talked to them, and actually they talked about it on stage as well. Guy in a Cube, follow their YouTube channel. Now they do have, if you dig deeper, they have training courses. It was like $300 for a training course. So you could literally go through some of these training courses through Guy in a Cube, and they'll walk you through like from the beginning to more advanced. I think it was $300 for the training courses. So go to their YouTube channel, then you can go to, if you do it to their site, you'll see the training courses that they talked about in some of their videos. I think that's it. That covers a lot. I appreciate everybody joining and watching the video. Again, if you're on YouTube, give me subscribe, click on the notification. If you're on Facebook, like my page, again, moderndeployment.com. If you're on Twitter, follow me on Twitter as well. Okay, thanks for joining. I think Ignite 2019 was good. Oh, by the way, tonight, Microsoft, as part of the Ignite this year, we're getting everybody from it. There's like 30,000 people at Ignite, by the way, this year. Everybody from Ignite that has the badge will be able to go to Universal Orlando, which is going to be awesome. So there may be long lines, but it'll be worth it. So be able to bring your badge. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't pay attention to those details, but this was a good event for me. I learned a lot. I think you'll benefit from it. Pay attention to the videos when they come out for Ignite, the PowerPoints, and also the videos. And, good luck to you and your organization in implementing some of these features from Microsoft. And I think overall it was a great event. So hope you have a good day, and thanks for watching the video today. Thanks.